Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our series of lessons looking at the Cold War. So, we're going to start off then with the Tehran Conference of 1943. So, if you remember from last lesson, we're right in the middle of World War II, and we've got this unlikely alliance of American Britain with Russia. And remember, we were looking at the difference between capitalism and communism, the difference between America and Russia. And yet, because they all have this common enemy of Hitler, we find themselves in alliances. So by the end of the lesson, you'll be able to explain the events of the Tehran conference. So what was discussed there, what was decided there, and the consequences. So by consequences, I just mean the things that happen afterwards as a result of it. So there's quite a few groups of conferences throughout the Cold War. These are known as the wartime conferences. So they take place during the time of World War II. So we have Tehran in 1943. By conferences, these are just meetings of those big three: Britain, America, Russia. After 1943, they're going to meet twice in 45. So once at Yalta and again at Potsdam in 1945. So if you get anything that talks about wartime conferences, these three meetings between those big three. So how we're going to remember it is a thank you, please. If you know someone whose name starts with a P that's really memorable to you, thank you, whatever their name happens to be. If you don't know anyone, thank you, please. Tehran, Yalta, Potsdam. In this video, we're going to look at the first one. We're going to look at Tehran. So, Tehran conference takes place at the end of 1943 in November. And just a reminder of who our three leaders are at this time. So, Roosevelt for America, Churchill for UK, very similar in lots of ways. Similar outlook, both from capitalist countries. And then Stalin from the USSR, who is a communist. So the three of them meet up November 1943 in Tehran. And each leader represents their country's interests, and they have really different concerns. So this is one of those times where you can see both sides' point of view. So at the moment, World War II is going on. In Europe, the fighting is largely happening in Russia. It's the Nazis on Russian soil fighting the USSR. And the picture you've got on the board is one of the Russian cities. This is Stalingrad at the time. And you can see just the sheer destruction. So there isn't a building left standing in the entire city. People who were still living in Stalingrad were living in cellars. So the war is having a tremendous effect on Russia. So they are really taking the brunt of the effort. They understandably feel a bit like they're doing all the work. So, as far as they're concerned, America and Britain are technically at war with the Nazis, but they're not seeing much evidence of it. To them, it looks like they're the ones doing all the work. America and Britain, on the other hand, are like, true, absolutely, you're doing all the work, but it's not that we don't want to help, it's we're not in a position to help right at this moment. So they have plans in place, they are going to come and fight, but as far as America and Britain feel, they're not ready. If they fight now, they're not going to be very effective. It could lose them the war. So Russia is like, where are you guys? I'm doing all the work. Britain, America, like, I know you are, and we're going to come and help, but we can't do just yet. So right from the start, there are tensions between them. So there are some major decisions that are made at Tehran. So during the conference, key decisions included the strategy to invade Nazi-occupied Europe. So mainland Europe at this time is almost entirely Nazi-occupied or held by an ally of the Nazis or someone who is neutral to the Nazis. So we can see Germany in the middle of the map there in yellow. So that's where the armies are trying to take over. Over in the east, we've got Russia, which is also in yellow, and there's lots of fighting going on. They're going to push back and reach Berlin. And what they agree at Tehran is that the United Kingdom and America and Canada are going to come over the channel from the United Kingdom, land in France, which at the time was held by the Nazis, and push towards Germany from the other side. So the idea was that both of them, they'll be in two teams and they will attack Germany from either side. And it's this that Stalin wants them to hurry up and get on with. So at Tehran, they agree that they will do this. They're called the D-Day landings or the Normandy landings. You might have heard of them, but not as quickly as the Soviets would have liked. So the leaders agreed the Allied forces would launch the invasion of Normandy to relieve pressure on the Soviet forces to take the heat off of Russia. And in return, the USSR agreed that they will join the attack against Japan. So America is fighting Japan in the Pacific. So the Soviets say, in return, when the Nazis are defeated, when Germany's out of the war, we'll then help you attack Japan, which they do for a few weeks before Japan is defeated. So one area of the Cold War that is going to come up time and time again is Eastern Europe. So if you look on the map, the dark red is the Soviet Union. The countries they are arguing over are going to be the ones in pink. So the Soviets really want to have control of Eastern Europe. There's something called a buffer zone. It's like a safety zone, something you would use for defense. So the Soviet Union's argument is that Europe keeps invading them and that they're really quite sick of it. And what they want is like a security zone around them. Countries that they control, that if you want to invade the Soviet Union, you have to attack those countries first. So anyone trying to attack the Soviet Union through Europe would have to attack Poland, East Germany, Czechoslovakia, Hungary before they get Soviet Union. So Stalin's attitude is they need it for their safety. Britain and America aren't a big fan of it. They don't like the idea of saying, well, you can have influence and control over whole sections of Europe. The Soviets also asked that part of Poland be given to them. And this is really difficult, especially for Britain. So, Britain, I don't know how much you know about World War II. The reason Britain goes into World War II is to protect Poland. So, Hitler's taking over large sections of Eastern Europe. And then Britain say, if you go near Poland, that will be the end of it and we will come to war. Hitler calls their bluff, invades Poland, and Britain joins World War II. So Churchill in particular is like, we've come into this war to protect Poland, and now we're just handing part of it over to our Soviet allies. It doesn't sit well with them. So already those tensions are starting, and we're on lesson 2. So we've only just started the course, and already these people aren't getting on with each other. It's going to get so much worse. So tensions right from the beginning. So the leaders discussed the need for a unified approach to rebuilding Europe. And we're going to look at this in more detail because it's going to cause so much problems. And again, you can see where both sides are coming from. Britain and America feel that after World War One, they were really harsh on Germany, and then it ended up with Hitler. So America and Britain are approaching it with a we need to try a different way. Rather than punish Germany, we need to help her get back on her feet. Soviets, like, that is a lovely idea, except our cities have just been destroyed. We need to rebuild. Where is this money coming from, if not from Germany? They also agree a United Nations would be set up, which is still in place today. So what it does, it lays the groundwork for those later conferences. So Yalta and Potsdam, the groundwork for those are laid at Tehran. But the big takeaway on that Tehran conference, it really highlights the tension that would eventually contribute to the Cold War. So this lesson naturally brings up lots of issues that are going to be a problem throughout the entire course. And then in the cartoon there, you can see just a reference for any source work. On the left, that's Uncle Sam. He represents America. On the right, the bear represents the Soviet Union. So you see either of those in a source, that's what they represent. And you can see there they're teetering with their tension. So nice overview of the Tehran conference is also a nice overview of the main problems of the Cold War.